Hey, what is up, Plus Fam? Welcome to podcast number 18. Hashtag Plus Fam shoutouts to Tom Gar, Joseph Andrews, Doko, Cam Worley, Comic Sans, Doug, and Ox Nagadaba once again for sending over gameplay for today's podcast. We actually had a conversation about this that I found really interesting, and I want to hear what some of your opinions were. Would you guys like a Clash of Ninja 3 with maybe characters all the way up to Boruto and some good balancing? Or would you rather see a Naruto Fighter Z type of game with a similar engine to the original Fighter Z and just have it balanced really well, kind of how Fighter Z is? I know Fighter Z does have a tier list, but still. I'm very curious what you guys prefer. Before we get started, I just want to announce a few things here at the beginning. Number one, I have started a second channel called Beyond Plus Ultraman. A lot of you enjoyed hearing me read Better Left Unsaid in the last episode of the PlusUltraPodcast, so I decided I would do an entire reading of the story on that second channel so it doesn't interrupt the regular upload schedule on this channel. So if you haven't heard it yet, go and check out the first episode of Better Left Unsaid being read by me, and then go and check out and subscribe to Beyond Plus Ultraman and catch Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 now of the story being read there. And I'm sure this will not be the only thing I do on Beyond Plus Ultraman. That's kind of why I call it Beyond Plus Ultraman. I'm probably going to be doing a lot of really weird, wacky things on that channel, just because it's supposed to be my kind of variety hour channel. If you've seen Kazuma Variety Hour, you know he's not a YouTuber who does one kind of, set amount of content in this one genre. He does a lot of things. That's kind of what I want. That's kind of what I want that channel to be, and that's definitely why I'm the direction I'm going to take it in. Also, I want to remind you guys of how to get your what ifs done in podcast form, because a lot of you are new or just don't know yet. On the latest podcast episode, comment using hashtag PlusUltraFam. I will have the correct spelling of the tag on screen right now as I'm speaking. It's got to be spelled this way or else I can't see them because I use the search function to speed this up when I'm actually looking for the what if suggestions. Also, I've decided to start reading the interesting comments and questions again, since I think I can kind of make the podcast longer, and a lot of you guys have begun to really become fans of the podcast, and you'll come watch it now, so I know I can give you guys maybe a 30-35 minute podcast. I don't mind reading really long, drawn out, interesting comments and questions again. So please go ahead and ask them. I really want to hear this stuff, because you guys have had some really cool things to say, some really good suggestions, some really cool criticism. I want to hear that stuff more and more and kind of respond to it live on the podcast in a way, or the next podcast, so you guys can hear your ideas and responses kind of, shot back at you. And finally, getting to our what if for the day. You've seen the thumbnail and read the title, and a lot of you remember that we've actually touched on this idea before in podcast number 4. I ended it off extremely early in that podcast because I was still developing the podcast format, but today I'm picking it right back up. What we'll be doing though is changing a lot of things and starting from the beginning of the story so it makes a little more sense and it's a little more cohesive as a narrative. So, the entirety of this timeline takes place the same as in canon until we get to the point where Kushina Uzumaki joins Minato's class in the Ninja Academy. I did the math, and Tsume Inuzuka is 36 in her first appearance in the story, meaning 12 to 13 years ago, she's either 23 or 24, which is right around the same age as Kushina when she dies. This leads me to think that the two would have been in the same class, and so could have been friends. If they were not, we'll just say that in this timeline they were. Running off that idea, I'm going to say that through small natural changes in this timeline, Kushina and Tsume become friends, just as Mikoto and Kushina become really good friends, and they're really bonding, especially when Kushina gets pregnant with her first child and comes to Tsume for advice since she'd already had her daughter Hana a while ago. This makes the two bond a lot more, and Tsume had already been pregnant again with her second child if I'm doing the math for Kiba's and Naruto's conceptions correctly. I know Naruto's birthday is somewhere in October, and Kiba's is apparently really early in July, so somewhere there you gotta subtract 9 months and do the math that I just don't want to do. Someone will definitely correct me if I didn't get it right though. Sadly, we know what becomes of Kushina and Minato, but here, Tsume is much more heavily impacted by this and this kind of loss of her friend, and would definitely be very anxious to go to the meeting that's going to decide what they're going to do with their new Jinchuriki. Now, Tsume is very outspoken, so I see her very openly laying her claim to Naruto and saying that as Kushina Uzumaki's friend, I think that I'll be the best person to take the boy, not just out of a maternal sense, but also out of a military sense, because me and my have the best means to kind of raise the Jinchuriki of the canine-tailed beast. The Nine Tails is a nine-tailed fox. Foxes are canines. We know the canine mind very well. He would be best coming with us. Now, clan heads who understand the value of Naruto growing up with love in his heart are definitely going to be for this idea of him coming up with the Inuzukas, but at the same time, apparently there is a rule that no one clan can control a Jinchuriki. But as I argued in the original draft of this timeline, Tsume could argue that, again, as the Ninetales is just an overgrown dog, really and truly, her clan is going to be the best to kind of teach Naruto how to master it, how to dominate it. They're not of the idea that you have to befriend the tailed beast. They're of the idea that you need to dominate them and bend them to your will. So with Tsume giving a very convincing argument and having the backing of a few of the clan heads, she will be awarded custody over Naruto Uzumaki. But there are going to be a few stipulations. First, the Inuzukas will raise Naruto, but his last name must remain Uzumaki to protect him from Minato's enemies, and symbolically, it just makes it seem like he isn't completely under the control of the Inuzuka clan. He isn't 100% just homogenous with this other clan. There would also have to be an Anbu placed in the home to monitor the family at all times. This Anbu would likely be Kakashi, handpicked by the third to monitor the family, and this will come into play later. It doesn't have to just be Kakashi, but it has to be someone who the third Hokage would definitely trust to be around them and not one of Danzo's spies. Also, just out of protection for the village, and since you'll be in charge of a Jinchuriki, Tsume must become a fully fledged Jonin to receive full custody. The dog woman agrees to this, and the deal is struck. Now, just to touch on the idea, Tsume in canon is almost a Jonin already. She's a Tokubetsu, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's one of those, but it's the same rank that Anko is, I believe, to where you're not necessarily a Jonin, but you're pretty close too. She just has to get a second change in chakra nature, and she should be able to do that pretty easily. Kiba's nature affinity is Earth, and I'm guessing that Tsume shares something with that, so let's just say that she also develops a fire nature, and after doing that and a little bit of training, she will be allowed to become a Jonin. Now, if I'm doing my math right, Tsume had given birth to Kiba that July, so he's 3 months older than Naruto, meaning that Hana around this time is about 6 years old. With Tsume having to train and work to provide for 3 hungry children and a bunch of dogs, I'm sure Hana would have to pick up the slack a lot and take care of her little brothers, and Tsume would likely force Kakashi, who is always nearby, to also help when it's appropriate. He really shouldn't be doing this, he shouldn't be involved in the family, but Tsume is probably going to be a very demanding person by the way that she's kind of characterized when we do see her, and by the way that Kiba speaks about her when she's actually not on screen. I think this family is going to be extremely close and cozy really easily. This is a weird thing to add in, and I say it only because it is a factor that will result in a deeper bond for this family and between Naruto and Tsume, but as Kiba would still be nursing, this means that Tsume would be able to breastfeed Naruto as well, which is a natural bonding activity between mother and child. I'm not saying that for any other reason than just it would be something that bonds these two together as mother and child, even though it's not by blood. So this means that Naruto is going to grow up viewing Tsume as his mom, even though it is extremely clear that he is adopted. Nobody else in this family looks like you, dude. There's no way you can grow up and think, oh yeah, we're definitely, of the same bloodline. No way. This also means that Kiba grows up with Naruto as his brother. Point blank, he'd be too young to ever remember a time when Naruto wasn't there as his little brother. Hana would have to mature very quickly and comes to love both her little brothers, even though she feels like her own childhood is being squandered a bit for them. But once Tsume is a Jonin, this can definitely calm down a bit, and I'm sure that Tsume can focus on living her own life and kind of let Hana, relax and be a child as well. That way she doesn't have to grow up way too quick. We'll skip ahead about 4 years to see the family dynamics, and at this point I see Naruto and Kiba as really playful and somewhat mischievous brothers, who pull small pranks together, not for attention, but just for the fun of pulling pranks on people. Just cause, they're young kids, that's what they're gonna do. I also think that in this timeline, Kiba is Naruto's brother, so he's willing to defend Naruto anytime, other kids or maybe other people say or do negative things around him. Kiba's going to be very protective of his little brother. He's not going to let the village kind of discriminate against him because he sees that as wrong, and because he doesn't know that Naruto has the Nine Tails, he doesn't understand why it's even happening. Even if they do ask their mom, she can't tell them why. It's still an S-rank secret. So he just thinks they're just being mean to Naruto for no other reason. And it's really messed up to him, and it's going to really make him very mad. And because of this, I'm sure that Kiba gets to argue and probably maybe fight some of the kids who try and bully and not really deal with Naruto. This also means that a lot of these kids have to deal with seeing Kiba as a perfectly functional, alright person who is around Naruto at all times, and he's okay, there's nothing wrong with him. So they're going to have to go back and question their parents and ask, hey, why is he able to hang out with him? And some would probably just brush Kiba off, but I'm sure this is going to kind of change their perspective of a few people in the village. But I think at most, 2 kids reveal themselves to want to be friends with both Kiba and Naruto, especially seeing Kiba is just fine around his brother, and that they're both pretty playful, pretty fun people to be around. Shikamaru and Choji. At least for them, the boys are fun to be around. So Naruto grows up in a loving family and has at least 2 real friends outside that family. Now, as for his personality, I do think he adopts a similar alpha male mentality to Kiba's, but his natural gentle and heroic nature makes him a much more toned down version of that. The closest idea I could really think about it would be kind of like Kirishima off My Hero Academia. Kirishima is really about being manly and he wants to be a top dog, but he's nowhere near as Bakugo-like about it. He's not digging and scratching and trying to step on other people. He wants to get stronger, and he's gonna get stronger just because he's a really nice, likable dude. So in this timeline, I see Naruto being a lot different than his canon self. He does still kind of have that alpha male mentality, and he is even more cocky and brash than his canon self because Kiba and Tsume will be amplifying those aspects of his personality. But I see him still being somewhat friendly and agreeable when he's not mad or angry. Meanwhile, Kiba is even more cocky and insufferable because he's a big brother in this timeline and not just somebody's little brother. Now, because Naruto is being raised by a clan in this timeline, I don't think he enters the academy until Kiba does, meaning he also starts training around that time as well. I do think that because he's a reincarnation of Ashura, Naruto does have to struggle a lot with small little things, but with a mom like Tsume, he's going to get more than enough encouragement to try his hardest, even when stuff he isn't really good at is giving him a really hard time. And beyond that, he has his mom and Hana to help him out with his shortcomings. So because of this, Naruto and Hinata's initial meeting is still going to take place, but Naruto is actually able to win the fight. He can't make a good clone, but as Kiba is one of the biggest and strongest kids in his class, so is this version of Naruto, who's been eating the same foods that Kiba has and doing the same workouts that Kiba has as a kid, so he's a powerful little kid. Actually, this kid Naruto and Kid Kiba would probably be even stronger than the Kid Kiba from the canon timeline because they have a training partner and they have really good nutrition and, a rivalry going there. So even though Naruto's going to take a beating himself, he thankfully has a cast iron chin and knows if he runs home with his tail between his legs, his mother is going to be a much worse opponent for him to fight. So Naruto goes on to save Hinata, who develops an even bigger admiration for the boy, and that red scarf becomes a lot more important to her in this timeline. She's also going to be a lot more gung-ho about training. Not only is Naruto a screw-up, but Naruto's a pretty strong screw-up. He can't make a clone, but he can sure enough dish out punishment when he wants to. So when he's finally at the age to enter the academy, I think Tsume, as much as it pains her, decides to grow a pair and tell her adopted child of his secret. Didn't get wiser to tell him now that he's mature enough to study to be a soldier, then later on. She'd probably also not like the idea of kind of pussyfooting around the subject. She wants Naruto and her to be 100% honest with each other at all times because Tsume just strikes me as that type of person and definitely that type of mother. I'm also sure that she would really make sure that he knows he can't go around just telling people this secret. He has to keep this in lock and key. So a few days later, under the watch of the third Hokage, Kakashi, and a few Anbu, Naruto is given instructions on how to meditate and try and get in contact with his tenant. His natural rambunctiousness makes it a lot harder for him to just sit down and be still, but I'm sure that a few choice words from his mother would make him shape right up and be serious. After a while, contact is made, and Naruto nearly wets himself seeing the Ninetales for the first time at a much younger age than he does in canon. But thankfully, his life with the Inuzukas has taught him about canine psychology and how he should deal with the fox. Naruto puts on a huge act of being the top dog, and this being his body, which the Ninetales is simply renting, which means he needs to pay rent. But unsurprisingly, none of this actually really works. The Ninetales just growls and tells him to bug off. Thinking of nothing else, Naruto tries one last-ditch effort that he knows the canine mind just cannot resist and will give him full dominant control over the Ninetales. He yanks down his trousers and begins to mark his territory. The Ninetales is disgusted and angered, and when getting the answer of what the kid is trying to do, Naruto claims that he is claiming his own territory, which actually gets a genuine laugh of the Ninetales at this really idiotic display of just childishness. The kid is interesting at the very least, so with a small eye roll, the fox declares that he would at the very least keep the boy alive and give him a tiny amount of power when he truly does need it. Naruto wakes up and relays this message to his caretakers, who are very proud of him. Around the same time, Kiba and Akamaru are introduced to each other. Tsume tries to do the same for Naruto with a puppy of his own, from the same litter. This doesn't work as the dog seems unable to form a true bond like what Kiba and Akamaru and the other members of the clan have because of the Ninetales. It's a similar situation to why Fukasaku couldn't gather nature energy for Naruto. While Tsume is trying to figure out what the problem is, Kakashi chimes in with a similar hypothesis to what Fukasaku gave and explains that Naruto likely can't bond with his own ninja hound. But as he's very good at thinking of things very outside the box, I think he'd come up with a very somewhat convoluted idea that I've just thought of. Per the idea of Kakashi, Tsume has a litter of puppies bred and has Naruto come to the mother of this litter and try to bond with her by channeling small amounts of his chakra into her and, by association, her forming children. This could possibly be harmful for the mother, and so she has to be monitored, but the small amount of chakra isn't hurting her immediately, just unnerving her at most because it does have kind of remnants of the Nine-Tails chakra within it. A few months later, and tragedy pretty much strikes. Naruto's chakra has had a negative effect on the litter. Most of the puppies are not surviving through birth, and as heartbreaking as that is, that's just the reality of the situation. Remember, at this time, the Nine-Tails chakra is very dangerous. Even during the Shippuden era, it's very dangerous to Naruto as it can burn his own skin off, and that's Naruto when he's in his late teenage years, so imagine what that's going to do to a very young puppy inside the womb. None of this was intentional, it's just Kakashi had an idea and didn't really know the full dangerous effects of the Nine-Tails chakra on beings that aren't really used to it. And because this happens, I'm sure that Naruto feels completely responsible for this and would likely feel really, really bad about it. His mother would also have to have another conversation with him about death way too soon after revealing to him that he is a Jinchuriki and the reason why his parents are dead. I think if Naruto kind of had this situation happen to him again, it would really affect his development and his current idea of being this cocky, brash person. Remember I said that he starts off very cocky like Kiba, but through here he's going to become a little more gentle and a lot more caring in his demeanor around people. I just think that he would develop a very protective personality. Now, the silver lining here is that a single puppy is able to survive birth and quickly begins to develop and grow stronger and stronger every day that they're thinking this puppy is going to die any day now. He actually has a lot of fox-like characteristics like dark red fur, a fluffy tail, and it has a strong connection to Naruto immediately as soon as it is able to walk and actually open its eyes. And the two have extremely similar chakra reserves of blue and red. This thing is somehow able to access its own pool of the fox's chakra. As for this dog's name, I did come up with a few things that would have been fitting, but I also wanted the name to match the nomenclature of the other Inuzuka clan dogs. Akumaru's name means red circle, and Tsume's dog, Kuromaru, actually means black circle. So I did think about naming the dog Orange Circle because that's Naruto's favorite color and it would be fitting. I even thought about naming the dog Uzumaru as in Spiral Circle because that's what Uzumaki means, so that would have kind of fit. But I ultimately decided on going with the name Nozomaru, which I believe is supposed to mean Circle of Hope or Hope Circle, signifying Naruto's hope for a brighter future alongside his puppy who lived when his siblings died. This will make the two have a very deep emotional bond with each other as they both lost something very dear to them in their birth. From here on out, Naruto and Kiba begin training seriously to be good ninja along with their puppies Akumaru and Nozomaru, with Naruto always having to work much harder than Kiba to keep up and both trying their hardest to keep up with Sasuke Uchiha, who soon loses his own family very soon after this. Now, think about the whole situation with Nozomaru. I'm sure that Naruto's going to kind of apply that same logic to what just happened to Sasuke and feel really, really sad about it. So, after that happens, I could honestly see Naruto reaching out to try and be friends with him, but Sasuke can't accept that. Naruto, though adopted, is still around a loving family environment, and he has not lost it. It is still there from him. Every time he goes home, his mother will be there, his brother will be there, and his sister will be there. He's gonna always have the love of a family member, and Sasuke just can't relate to him anymore. So he's gonna reject Naruto, and that's gonna really hurt and anger Naruto on multiple levels. On one level, the comparative suffering is gonna piss him off just because anytime you compare your suffering with somebody else's, it's gonna make them very, very mad. But also, the rejection as a whole is very infuriating. This ends up resulting in a super heated rivalry between these two to where I would say that Naruto and Sasuke, not just, small jabs and, digs at each other, they actually do hate each other. This is true, visceral, I can't be in the same room with this person, hate towards each other. And by association, Kiba is also hated. And the three quickly begin to be known as, not really the big three, but they're always kind of competing with each other. This is known far and throughout the school during their actual training days. And because of this, I think that Kiba and Naruto, at least at the beginning of school, are a lot further ahead in the class rankings than they are in canon. This also means that Sasuke has to work a lot harder to maintain his spot at the top, and I think he would definitely rise to that challenge, becoming a much stronger version of himself a lot earlier in canon. That said, someone else is growing a lot more than in canon as well, As Naruto is an Inuzuka in this timeline, he has developed a nose and sense of hearing like one of the Inuzuka, and so he very easily hears the breathing of someone who is watching his training and is able to pick up their scent as well. As brash as ever, he calls him out for being creepy and being a stalker, and an absolutely embarrassed, terrified, and honestly hurt Hinata reveals herself to him. Before she can explain herself, she can't help but begin to cry, and Naruto quickly loses any bravado or sense of anger, and begins to apologize to Hinata for calling her those things, possibly even recognizing her scent as the girl he had saved a while ago, and finally realizing they were in the same class and that they actually knew each other before this. Upon that realization, I see him striking up a conversation, and because it's so rare for him to actually have people really pay attention to him and want to deal with him outside his family and his few friends, he's all for trying to get her out of her shell and to have a conversation with him. Even if she's going to be speaking very, very quietly, he has pretty good ears so he can hear her and not really have to make her repeat herself too much. Naruto asks her to speak up some, but not a ton, even getting her to pet Nozomaru and make the puppy very affectionate towards her. Naruto even invites Hinata to train with him, and the two spend the rest of that evening working over their kunai throwing skills. The trio would decide they really enjoyed spending time together and would opt to make this a regular thing from now on in training together. Skipping ahead about 3 years, Sasuke, Naruto, and Kiba have gotten extremely strong to the point there are talks about Sasuke possibly being able to graduate early in this timeline. These are shot down as it could be dangerous to allow him to become a Genin so early based on what happened with Itachi. Sadly, Naruto's grades are beginning to slip hard because of his chakra control, as things like the clone jutsu and the substitution jutsu are being introduced to the class. Naruto's not picking up on this. Outside of his taijutsu and his ninja weapon use, Naruto has really no talent, and the only reason he's good at those things is because he's put a lot of work in with his mom and his sister after school when he doesn't really have to be training. Kiba also trains some, but remember, he's still very cocky and brash, and even his mom says that he should have taken his training a lot more seriously as a kid. I can see him training more than he did in canon, but not so much to where he's going to get a lot stronger than he really was. Thankfully, Naruto actually can do the transformations pretty well. He does still come with the sexy jutsu because it would still be pretty effective against people like Iruka and possibly even Kiba. We've never really seen too much perviness from Kiba, but I could definitely see him being one. But I'm sure if his mother finds out about this technique, he is in the doghouse. Strangely, Nozomaru also has some issues with chakra control, as he has a large abundance of his own chakra. Back at home, Tsume and Hana try to help Naruto by teaching him some small chakra control exercises, like sticking a leaf to his head, on other places of his body, and drastically, maybe even the tree walking exercise. I believe if Kiba saw this, he would also want to learn it, and so the two may learn it a lot earlier, but even after this, I don't think that Naruto will be able to make his own clone. Finally, Tsume realizes the thing that a lot of people realize later on in the series, which is that Naruto literally has so much chakra, he just can't fine-tune it enough to get that small amount to make clones. There's just no reason to try and get him to learn the normal clone jutsu. I think she would debate whether she should teach him the shadow clone technique or not, and because of the difficulty and responsibility the technique calls for, she decides to hold off on it for now and push him to keep training harder and harder with his chakra control exercises. So more of the leaf exercises and, tree climbing, things like that, he's going to be doing a lot more of now. But because of this, I'm going to say that Naruto is pushed into the dead last spot. Because of the rivalry between the Inuzuka brothers and Sasuke, most, if not all, of the members of the class have gotten stronger due to their influence, so Naruto is at the bottom of the pack once again. The last few years in the academy pass, and Tsume indeed ends up having to teach her son the Shadow Clone Jutsu just so he can pass. It's not something she wants to do because it would be a very high level technique for him to learn so early on, and he and Kiba already have really big heads, so it's not something she's really too gung-ho to do, which is why she waits so long to do so. This means that Naruto passes with his entire class and likely goes to celebrate with his family, as well as the Inoshika families, as well as Hinata if she's allowed to attend this. Meanwhile, a Chunin named Mizuki is able to convince a random student who fails to try and steal the Scroll of Sealing. This child is easily caught and brought to Mizuki, who quickly flees the village, becoming a missing nin because of this, and like in the filler, hoping to seek out Orochimaru for sanctuary. A while passes and orientation and team assignment come. As in canon, a much stronger Sasuke is named the Rookie of the Year. Naruto was never able to climb out of the dead last spot in time, and Hinata in this timeline, through being inspired and training with a stronger Naruto, has become the top kunoichi. Naruto honestly shouldn't have been placed on this team because he is much stronger than a true dead last, but his Jinchuriki status means that Kakashi needs to be his sensei regardless to deal with the fox if anything goes wrong with it, and he has to train Sasuke as well, so it's just inescapable for these two to not be on the same team with each other. Meanwhile, a much stronger Kiba is placed on Team 8 with Shino Aburame and Sakura Haruno. This team is meant to be a tracking team, and even though Sakura doesn't have too much real prospects in doing any tracking, she does have a lot of good chakra control and could maybe learn to do something with that. And her genjutsu skill can also grow from here. There is a very big debate on who is actually going to lead this team. Even though giving the team Kurenai as a sensei would really help out Sakura and her genjutsu needs, the tracking aspects of the team won't really be that well, nurtured as they could be if another tracking ninja had led this team. And in this timeline, remember, a really strong tracking ninja has become even stronger and has actually become a Jonin. So in this timeline, it is ultimately decided that Tsume Inuzuka will lead Team 8. It's somewhat unprofessional to have family members serve as teachers, but on a mission where you need multiple Inuzukas, they might have to work with each other anyway, so it would make sense to get them used to that either way. And beyond that, she's likely the best teacher for a tracking team overall, and could help with combat expertise since she's a lot stronger here. Shikacho must be maintained, but all three members are a bit stronger because of Naruto, Kiba, and Sasuke's influence on them. I went over how the bell test would go in podcast number 4 when I originally touched on this idea. Naruto, Nozomaru, and Hinata are fully willing to work together and take on Kakashi, who has a lot of trouble holding back on them and has a few really close calls against them. Sasuke is a lot stronger and is just as successful as in canon, and actually ends up being tied to a tree with no lunch as Kakashi spells out that teamwork is the name of the game, even scolding Naruto and Hinata for not trying to actually get Sasuke to work with him in the first place, and basically trying to form a two-main team by just getting the bells themselves and not even trying to deal with Sasuke. This means that really no one was in the right, and even though Naruto truly does hate Sasuke here, I think that he does have the maturity to kind of get over that for the sake of making sure his team passes. This isn't just his life, this is also Hinata's life as well, so he can't just throw that away because he doesn't want to work with Sasuke. So when Kakashi leaves, Naruto gives him part of his lunch and claims that if one member of the pack is too weak, then he will drag the entire family down. So like in canon, Kakashi reappears and passes his team, very excited that they were able to get over their own hatred for each other. From here, the teams begin doing their D-rank missions in the following days. Now, both Kiba and Naruto quickly grow very sick of this and tell their mother over dinner one night that they both want to go on a C-rank mission because doing all this kind of chore work is really boring. Tsume, though, realizes the need for D-rank missions and the need for getting them some groundwork as these kids have never really had true combat experience, and she doesn't really want them out in the field just yet. So she commands her boys to be patient, even going so far as to find Kakashi and tell him to stick to D ranks for at least another month because she just isn't ready for the boys to be in the field yet. You could argue that Kakashi would want to lead his squad his way and would tell her to kind of, bug off, but I think since he spent a lot of time around Tsume when he was watching over Naruto with her, he's going to likely trust her, judgment and really respect her in this timeline. So for now, D ranks and trying to repair the rift between Sasuke and Naruto become his top priority. Because of this, a different team is deployed to protect Tazuna to the Land of Waves, while back at the Leaf, Kakashi begins giving his team a lot of teamwork exercises. Also during this time, I think that Tsume gets very sick of Sakura being a very weak kunoichi because she's a really strong kunoichi and that kind of just drags down the entire profession of female ninjas. So she's going to really focus on her development as a ninja and probably get Kiba and Shino some teamwork training as well because I feel like those would really be equals in this timeline. Not to where Shino is really far above Kiba and Hinata like he was in canon. No, these two are actually really good rivals here. Back at the Land of Waves, I think that pretty much any team should be able to take on the Demon Brothers decently well, especially if they're more than one Chunin. So the Demon Brothers should be defeated, and after this, I think Tazuna would either be sent off on his own or will return to the village and request a B-rank mission by explaining his situation to the Hokage, who is a very nice and understandable person. I don't understand why Kakashi didn't just tell Tazuna at this moment, like, hey, I think if you just tell the Hokage what's really going on, he may just kind of loan you the money to require your own B-rank mission, and you'll pay it back once the bridge is done and you're able to get your economy off the ground. Story-wise, I know why that was never actually said. I'm just saying it would make sense if a different character who isn't kind of, made by the plot to make this kind of statement. So after this, a squad of 1 Jonin and 3 Chunin are deployed this time and are able to protect Tazuna even against Zabuza. Haku would likely still step in, and this time, as their opponents are much more dangerous, being 3 other Chunin, the duo decide to cut their losses on this job and go to kill Gato and his, 2 samurai thugs and take whatever they can before leaving the area. So there's no real, battle on the bridge anymore. Gato's dead. They gotta finish the bridge, and that's pretty much it. Weeks later, Tsume thinks it's finally appropriate for her children to do their first C ranks. For them, it's a very simple escort merchant from point A to point B mission alive, and possibly fight some bandits. This mission will be easy enough for both squads, but I can see all three beginning of either squad possibly getting their first true kills in this timeline, which is just a growing part of being a ninja. We'd also get to see Tsume kind of counseling her team and Kakashi kind of counseling his team after they've done this, and that's always a really cool thing I love to see in fanfiction that do that. Is this is a really hard thing to put on a child, so there would have to be some type of real sit down and talk about your feelings after you've taken a life for the first time. These are child soldiers when you really get down to it, and it's a really fun idea to kind of explore that. After this, they return to the Leaf and the tuning exams are announced, and of course, Sasuke and Naruto, even though they really don't like each other still, decide they want to enter, with the peer pressure getting to Hinata, and her wanting to enter as well. Tsume also decides she'll enter her squad, mainly because she wants to in-depthly see how well they stack up against others, as they are strong, and hopefully this will teach them some valuable lessons. It'd be a very similar reason as to why Kakashi entered his team in. He wants them to get some real world experience because they're always kind of complaining about the D-rank missions they go on. They need to understand that life and death are very possible for them in the ninja world, and because she doesn't really know that Gaara is going to be there or the Leaf Crush plan is going to happen, she probably thinks that the tuning exam should be a pretty safe option to do it because they'll be having the Leaf this time. So skipping ahead, I could still see Rock Lee challenging Sasuke to a fight in this timeline, which would still be pretty good for him. Hinata and Naruto still watch it, and I see Naruto doing a bit better if he does challenge Lee. Maybe Lee would be very impressed by Naruto's power, just in raw physical strength, and I would see Naruto kind of being like, Nozomaru, don't get involved in this, or something like that, just to give you a bit more of what would actually happen in this timeline chain. From here, the first few parts of the exam go how they did in canon. Sasuke, however, cannot cheat like he does on the first test, as his Sharingan, as of yet, has not awoken. So he must rely on Naruto and Nozomaru, who again, he does not like, for the answers in the written test. These are the small things that are going to kind of play into his starting to somewhat want to be able to tolerate Naruto and realize that he is a pretty strong and capable ninja in his own right. After that, the teams are released into the Forest of Death, where Team 7 has the ultimate early warning system, kind of how Team 8 did in canon. Naruto and Nozomaru's senses of smell and Hinata's eyes let them know exactly where they are and who's around them at all times. And if you really think about it, the Nine-Tails chakra that can enhance Naruto's senses of smell and hearing would probably be even stronger than Kiba's, so you even have even more of an early warning system. This means no attack by the Rain Ninja Oboro because the team would know he was there before he could even ambush anybody. And if he could ambush Naruto, he's so much stronger here, he'd be able to pretty much easily defeat him on his own. This also means they have a very clear warning of the attack from the Grass Ninja. She would reveal herself and unleash her killing intent, which scares everyone, but Naruto's improved connection with the Nine-Tails pretty much automatically elicits this chakra to seep out of him in this moment. And because of not actually going to the bridge, this would be his first time truly using it in a battle. As he does naturally, but also because of being raised as an Inuzuka, Naruto instinctively drops to all fours and begins using the all four jutsu on top of his QB enhancement, which is going to make him extremely fast and strong. As this happens, Nozomaru, like his master, undergoes a similar metamorphosis and begins to leak dangerous red chakra. Orochimaru is supremely intrigued by the dog, also sharing connection to Naruto's chakra, and begins trying to toy the boy and his puppy to see how powerful they both are in this state. Naruto is physically a monster like this, and with Nozomaru and clones, Orochimaru is very surprised by how much effort he's having to put into this fight. Finally seeing just how powerful Naruto truly is, and how fast these two are fighting, Sasuke finally breaks out of his stupor, and actually ends up awakening his Sharingan once again, being driven to also fight alongside Naruto and Nozomaru. Hinata is also able to draw herself into the battle solely for the reason to protect her friends. While fighting all three members of Team 7, Orochimaru is being pushed back decently well, but not too much. Seeing Sasuke's visual prowess, he is very pleased and quickly decides to try and put a stop to this fight. Using the 5-pronged seal, he is able to seal Naruto's Fox Chakra and put him out of commission. Hinata actually tries to stop him from falling off the branch, which takes her out of the fight as well. Meanwhile, he takes the time to bite down on Sasuke's neck and bestow the curse mark upon him. Finally, Nozomaru is torn between trying to save his master and protect him and keep Orochimaru away from them. This moment of hesitation is all Orochimaru needs as he stretches his hand out and tries to grab the dog, trying to take him back with him to be dissected and studied on how it is able to use the Nine-Tails chakra and to see if he can actually pass this trait on to Orochimaru himself. Now angered at having his master injured while he has to fight Orochimaru, Nozomaru begins to fight a lot harder than he was before. Much more of the Nine Tails chakra than Orozu has ever really felt begins to leak out of him, as his skin and fur begins burning away, being replaced by flowing malevolent chakra, much like Naruto's Four-Tail state. Orochimaru finally gets his hands on the dog and begins drawing him back towards him while still studying his new transformation. The dog then kicks him in the stomach, sending him shooting back through a few trees, as Nozomaru reveals that his connection to the Nine Tails is a lot stronger than anyone thought, as he actually speaks in a voice that sounds scarily like that of the Nine Tails, and angrily growls that this worm would dare harm his master. Orochimaru is really shocked by this, but even more so as Nozomaru begins to form a huge ball of condensed chakra in front of it before actually swallowing this and preparing for the chakra gun attack. As he is already growing pretty tired and this body isn't the newest, Orochimaru decides to dip out instead of trying to block it with the Rashomon gates. Nozomaru then fires off his chakra gun and it actually takes out a huge chunk of the forest with it. When this is done, the dog passes out in a very injured state, nearly hairless and in critical condition. Hinata is left to try and get her 3 teammates to safety, though she is confused and overwhelmed by all of this. Team Dosu decides to attack her, and unlike Sakura, she is able to put up an amazing fight. But thankfully, she really doesn't have to for long. Kiba, who is stronger this timeline, remember, has smelled his brother and Nozomaru's blood and would definitely have noticed the huge explosion from Nozomaru's chakra gun and would have come running to make sure they were alright, and once seeing that they are unconscious while their teammate tries to protect them, instantly joins the fray, along with maybe Rock Lee as well. At the same time, Sasuke wakes up using his curse mark and begins wreaking havoc on everyone. Thankfully, they are able to calm him down, and Dosu leaves his team scroll before they get killed by this overwhelming force. Naruto finally wakes up and sees the condition that Nozomaru is in. Angry and afraid, he picks up the scroll and tells his team to come along as he races towards the tower at extremely high speeds. Once there, he pushes past the proctors around him and finds Tsume by her scent. He gets to her, holding his bloody puppy, and the mother goes off to try and get the puppy to Hana for medical attention. But closer to fam, I'll be leaving the story here for right now. I think I'm going to randomize the actual fights in the tuning exams, so that's going to take some time to actually write the next few sections, and I really do want to dive more into this story. So the next time we do a Naruto What If on the podcast, it'll likely be this one. So if you guys have Naruto What Ifs, be sure to actually suggest them, and be aware that I might be doing this one again, so be willing to suggest them more than once. I'll probably do the next part of this, kind of like how I did the What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl What If, where it's a lot longer and more in depth, so you can get a lot more of the story there, because I really do like this idea. I love this concept actually. Though, I know it can get a bit fictional, the whole thing with Nozomaru, I really do want to explore that more because I think this would be kind of a cool thing to do if Naruto had a ninja hound with him, could it actually have a connection to the Nine Tails in itself? Could it being a canine and the Nine Tails being a canine give it a stronger connection? Could this connection be kind of overwhelmed? Could it be synchronized in a way? There's a lot of cool things that can happen with this. So be sure to leave your own ideas in the comment section using hashtag PlusUltraFam, and as always, take care of yourselves and go beyond plus ultra. I'll see you guys next time.